So here we go, hypotenuse leg. Hypotenuse leg is a congruence theorem that can only be used in right triangles, simply because right triangles are the only kind of triangles that have a hypotenuse. You can't use hypotenuse leg when there is no hypotenuse. So, hypotenuse leg congruence theorem says if the hypotenuse and the leg of a right triangle are congruent to the hypotenuse and a leg of another right triangle, then the triangles are congruent. So you'll notice that all of our examples here, we're dealing with right triangles because, again, hypotenuses only exist in right triangles. We need to determine if the pair is congruent by hypotenuse leg. Now, one thing we know about hypotenuse leg is technically hypotenuse and leg are both sides of the triangle. We also know that there is an angle that is congruent because when you have right triangles, it has to have a 90-degree angle. So we already know we have a congruent pair of angles. We don't need to list them, we just need to list the hypotenuse and the leg that are congruent. So again, the way you find the hypotenuse is if you go directly out from that right angle. That gives you your hypotenuse. It's the side opposite that right angle. And in this case, it looks like the hypotenuse has 3 ticks on it, and over here it has 3 ticks. So guess what? We have the hypotenuse is congruent. Now, if I give letters to this, A, B, C, and then let's see, D, F, I would say what? The hypotenuse, if I call it AC in this triangle, is congruent to DF in the other triangle. Again, end of the short leg to the end of the long leg. And then I just need to state the other leg that is also congruent. Well, if I go from the right angle out here on the side that has 2 ticks, I would say BC is congruent to, again starting here, EF. And that's enough to say yes, they are congruent by hypotenuse leg. Okay, we don't need to state that the right angle here is congruent to the right angle there, because with right triangles we know that they have congruent angles there. This one, number 2, let's see what we've got. Well, those 2 angles are congruent because they're both 90 degrees. Those 2 are congruent. I could label these guys as congruent because they are vertical angles, but if we're thinking about hypotenuse leg, those are both sides. There's nothing that says anything about sides here. All we have are angles marked. So we cannot say that these 2 triangles are congruent by hypotenuse leg. Yes, I know there is a hypotenuse and there is a hypotenuse there, but I don't know that they're congruent to each other. So I cannot use that as a reasoning for hypotenuse leg. Okay, let's try this guy. You see we have one right triangle down here. We have another right triangle up here. And they actually share a hypotenuse. So if I put letters here, A, B, C, D, my hypotenuse, if I call it AC, not AC, come on, BC, it's called BC, is congruent to, is it the same order? From the unmarked side to the 2-tick side, unmarked, yep, BC is congruent to BC. That's that reflexive property. It's congruent to itself. Now I just need to state the leg that's congruent, and it's marked here. So AC is congruent to, starting at the right angle, DC. And again, make sure you've got that segment there. And that's enough to state that, yes, this is congruent by hypotenuse leg. Okay. All right, over here, I have a right angle here. This one is not marked as a right triangle. Is it a right triangle? Yes, it is, because with vertical angles, those 2 are congruent. If this is 90 degrees, guess what? That's also 90 degrees. So, the hypotenuse is marked congruent to the hypotenuse over there. And it does look like they have markings on a leg also. So let me put some letters in here. A, B, C, D, E. So if I say the hypotenuse, I'm going to say side AB is congruent to DE. And then the leg that's congruent would be AC, and that is congruent to DC. And that's enough to say, by hypotenuse leg, we've got some congruence that's going on. Okay? If you want a challenge, go ahead and pause the video and try numbers 5 and 6 on your own, and then come back and see if you got them right. All right? So, number 5. The hypotenuse of this right triangle is right there. The hypotenuse of this right triangle is right there. They share a hypotenuse. Well, sharing a side means it's congruent. So I think I have the hypotenuses congruent. And because of those markings right there, it looks like I also have a leg. So if I talk about the hypotenuse in this one, I'm going to call it SQ. And I'm going to say that it is congruent to, let's see, SQ, it starts on the side that has the 1 tick mark and goes over here. This one starts on the side that has the 1 tick mark, means the Q goes first. So QS. And then the leg, I'm going to say PS, is congruent, again starting at the right angle, RQ. And there's my proof that we have congruence based on hypotenuse leg. All right, number 6, determine the value of x that would make the triangles congruent by hypotenuse leg. Well, we can see that the hypotenuses are congruent because they're sharing a side. There's the hypotenuse, there's the hypotenuse. It's the same segment, it's going to be the same thing. If I need to have these two triangles congruent by hypotenuse leg, I need to have a congruent leg in each of the triangles. So I need to say that those two legs need to be congruent to each other. So how can I set them equal? I say x plus 8 has to equal 3x minus 14. And this is the equation I'm going to solve. So let's see, I'm going to get my x's together first. I'm going to subtract x. You could subtract 3x over here if you wanted to. I just prefer to keep things positive. That leaves me with 8 equals 3x minus x is 2x minus 14. Next, I'm going to add my 14. And let's see, 2x is equal to 14 plus 8 is 22. Divide both sides by 2, and x is equal to 11. Now, I should be able to check. If I plug in 11 there, 11 plus 8 is 19. If I plug in 11 here, I should also get 19. Let's see, 3 times 11 minus 14 does give me 19. So 11 is that x value that will give you two legs that are congruent, and then you can state that those two triangles are congruent by the hypotenuse leg. All right, happy studying.